Mr. Mizrahi, that's an interesting accent you have. And I'd say, my accent is French. And they said, French? I took French in high school. What part of France are you from? And I'd say, I'm not French, I am Italian. And they say, Italian? Oh, I should have guessed Mizrahi was an Italian name. So, did you live in France or in Italy? And I said, neither. I was born and raised in Egypt. And they said, Egypt? I've always wanted to go there and see the pyramids. And frankly, just between the two of us, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Arab side, and not the other side, if you know what I mean. And I'd say, I'm not an Arab. My name, Mizrahi, is Hebrew. I am Jewish. I said, Jewish? Oh, but how come you? And so on and so forth. Occasionally, I try to make it short and say, I was born and raised in Egypt, in an Italian, Jewish, French-speaking family, and now I'm an American.
I have beautiful memories of Cairo. Until 1948, it was a golden age of my life.
Nous allions à l'école des missionnaires. Et là, nous étions tous des chrétiens, des juifs et des musulmans. C'était naturel, c'était pas quelque chose de spécial, hein?
The Jewish schools, for instance, they taught 5 languages. They taught French, the mother tongue of the Jews. They taught English. They taught Arabic. They taught Hebrew, and even Italian. And the Jews always looked for culture.
Il y avait un mélange cosmopolite. L'Égypte, aux années 1850, était devenue une plaque tournante commerciale où il y avait un afflux de juifs et de non-juifs de tous les pays.
It was very common to have this mixed life. If we went to excursions or our tennis club that was very famous with TTC, we went to play tennis every weekend.
Occasionally we went to Gropi and La Paz and places like that, but usually not to sit down and have coffee and tea, which is what the usual thing. We would buy things from them, especially pastries, special candy, what we call the pâté à l'anchois, anchovy croissant, if you will.
Gropi, I'd say, was the center of our lives. It was, as I think about it, this almost magical place. And I would have my favorite chantilly cream, la crème chantilly.
La grande serata, si vuole, sabato sera, la grande uscita, era andare al cinema all'aria aperta, che alle 6 lì faceva buio, alle 7 il primo spettacolo, si vedeva il film.
I had a lot of Egyptian friends. I got along with them very well. We used to go out. We used to go out to a movie. We used to go out to dinner.
Cinema, for me anyway, was escapism. It was adventure. It was, Westerns, Errol Flynn, Crimson Pirate, all these sort of adventure films that they used to do in the late 40s, early 50s. It was a window on the world of Hollywood, let's put it that way.
I identify more with the Egyptian movie, to tell you the truth, than I did identify with American movies, which didn't represent what I was seeing, where I was living,
Tutti I film, non dimenticare, in Egitto, tutti erano in lingua originale, con sottotitoli. E per questo anche che conosciamo bene inglese e francese, perché sentivi l'inglese e leggevi in francese.
We spoke English at school. We heard all languages, so It was a sort of a mixture of all of those languages. And we never, at the end, decided which culture we belonged to. We were in sort of a kids of the world, the children of the world. We were begging for a nationality. We were never accepted as Egyptian. On the other hand, we were not either Israelis or European. We were a mixture of everything.
Le frère de mon grand-père, dans les années 20, lui a dit « L'Égypte, c'est notre pays, nous y vivons, il faut devenir égyptien. Donc va renoncer à ton passeport français et on va demander le passeport égyptien. » Et c'est ce qu'il a fait. Et à ce moment-là, le Parlement égyptien a passé une loi comme quoi tout juif, même né en Égypte, ne pourrait pas acquérir la nationalité égyptienne. Donc on n'était plus français et on n'était pas encore égyptien et on s'est retrouvé apatride.
My father had a small store in downtown Cairo selling clothing. He employed 2 people. It was a very small, narrow store, really across the street from the synagogue. I remember when I was growing up, the entrance to the store was very narrow. A guy stood in front of the store, looked up and says, Mizrahi, Yehudi, and then he walked away. So he wanted to make sure that we heard that we knew that he knew, and all that. I mean, that was the kind of slight that we kept hearing more and more often as I was growing up. It was getting worse every year as I was growing up.
On the 15th of May, 1948, when the State of Israel was declared, we remembered what the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Egypt said at the United Nations. He said, if you create the State of Israel, the Jews of Egypt and of all the other Arab countries will suffer.
Il clima politico stava cambiando slowly but surely e si sentiva che tirava un'aria poco buona e che, in parole povere, tutti quelli che non si chiamavano Mustafa o Mohammed Ali non avevano nessun futuro.
Tout à coup, je me suis dit que être juive, c'est un crime. Du jour au lendemain, mon monde entier a basculé. J'ai commencé à avoir peur. J'ai cru qu'un jour, ils vont aussi venir me prendre parce que je suis juive.
We knew that probably our telephone lines were tapped. We knew that our mail was being read, mail coming from abroad. And it was not hidden because the letter would come and would be opened on one side with like a sticker showing that the censor opened the letter. So we were extremely careful. Obviously, we couldn't express any political view in public with people we didn't know.
Io sono stato arrestato in quanto fondatore della sezione egiziana della Quarta Internazionale. Ero nella prigione di Hadra, in una cella che era forse 5-6 metri sottoterra, i cui unici compagni erano gli scarafaggi e i topi. È stato un momento estremamente duro della mia vita, potrei dire anzi il momento più duro di tutta la mia vita.
3 a.m. in the morning, there is a knock on the door. There is a guy very well dressed with a group of 6 or 7 Egyptian with galabia. And this guy enters the living room and he sits on the sofa and he starts giving orders to the people with the galabia. He said, take this, take that, take this and that. And they dilapidated the house. They stole every goddamn piece of furniture and antiquity and jewelry, whatever was there. They just stole everything. If you wake me up any day in my life and you ask me what happened that night, I remember it as if it was yesterday and it was 50 years ago. That was our last night. It has had such an influence in my decisions of never, ever to become at the mercy of anybody.
It was so traumatic that I came home and I was all shaking, and I said, we have to go, we have to go. And my father said, we have to go because they took my permit, and now I can't work anymore. And my poor grandmother, she said, wait, we can't leave like that. We can't leave our whole life. I want to be buried near my parents in the cemetery in Cairo. And when she saw that my father was adamant, how do you want us to live without being able to work? She threw herself from the stairs. She took all the beautiful crockery we had on a rolling table and rolled herself down from the stairs with everything beautiful which she loved. And I came to her, and she had blood, and she said, go to Jerusalem for me.
Partir was a word which means to leave in French, was a word that I grew up with. I could always, such and such a family is going to partir, ou partir. Partir was a word that meant excitement, adventure to the young people. To middle-aged people with small children, they said, well, yes, it's a good idea because this country is going down the drain, but are we going to be able to adapt to a new country, a new language, start over from scratch? And partir struck fear in the hearts of old people who did not want any change in their lives at the time when they were in advanced years.
I think one of the most traumatic experience was when we went to the port, and we took a boat, of course. We only had personal effects, and we had our Egyptian passport, and we had to give it away. We had to give it up, give it away, and we were given what they call a laissez-passer, which was stamped that we had to leave without coming back. And so being on the ship and seeing Alexandria it was my first time outside of Egypt, ever. It still was the unknown.
Siamo partiti il 22 dicembre su questa nave, mai presa una nave in vita nostra, e siamo arrivati a Genova il 26 di dicembre, freddo boia, con 42 valigie.
I remember the morning before we left, I actually went and I passed my hand over every single one of my books as a way of saying goodbye to them.
We loved Egypt and we still left it. There was this mixed feelings about leaving Egypt on one side but still loving it.
There were more than 900,000 Jews, almost 1 million, who were thrown from Arab countries with nothing.
Uno non può dimenticare, è impossibile dimenticare e non bisogna dimenticare perché, grazie a Dio, siamo usciti vivi. La stragrande maggioranza, bene o male, è risalita alla china e la risalita perché hanno avuto come esempio i nostri genitori.
Nous avons vu nos parents se battre, être humiliés, rebondir correctement et malgré ça nous donner un message de tolérance envers les autres. Les Juifs d'Égypte sont les meilleurs adeptes de la survie parce qu'ils l'ont montré dans tous les pays où ils ont été.
Vous savez, mon père ne s'est jamais laissé décourager. Et il avait toujours cette expression de dire « Kollo yetzala », qui en arabe veut dire « tout va s'arranger ». Tout ça va arranger d'une façon ou d'une autre.
Les Juifs d'Égypte, quand ils étaient en Égypte, ils ont toujours été très actifs, toujours, très ambitieux, et ils aidaient l'un l'autre en Égypte. Et on voulait réussir, et on aimait la réussite, même quand c'était la réussite d'un autre. Ça nous est resté. Hein? Ça, on ne peut pas nous prendre. Et c'est vrai qu'on a eu la chute. On a eu cette chute terrible, expulsés, confisqués de nos biens et malmenés, tout ce que vous voulez. Mais ce que nous avions en nous, c'est resté en nous. Ce besoin et cette ambition de reprendre le dessus et d'émerger, voilà, c'est ça ce qui nous a donné la force d'être sauvés.
I don't think I would have been able in the 60s to accomplish all of those things I have accomplished here in Europe. So I'm very, very grateful to have come here. I'm actually grateful to Nasser to have kicked us out finally.
We all had to go. We all had to leave everything behind. There was nothing left. And yet, rather than bitterness and anger and violence, that's not what you see in most of the Egyptian Jewish refugees wherever they gather, wherever we gather, Paris, Lausanne, New York, parts of Brazil and Mexico and Buenos Aires. You see more of a longing.
We left Egypt, but Egypt never left us.